I mean, the main reason I pulled this email was as a springboard for us to talk about our insanely subjective selection process for reviews.
We review what we want to.
That's basically
review.
Review games because we're already interested.
But occasionally that's a game that one of us would necessarily it would be in our wheelhouse. But it was disappointing, like the Tony Hawk 5 thing.
Right.
Like, we reviewed that, and you gave it, like, what, 1 or 2 stars?
I believe it was a 1.
Understandably,
But good or bad, you personally very much care about a new Tony Hawk game.
Yeah. That was a game.
You would have things to say.
That was a game I had to see one way or the other.
Yep.
Right.
And so, so I definitely reviewed it. We pick and choose. We're highly choosy about the games we review because it's an investment of time. For us, and like there's only so many hours in the day, so at some point it's like, okay, is it worth it for us to be doing this instead of like 3 quick looks, or like whatever the number ends up being.
We've kind of gotten to a point of like staff size and production schedule that if you weren't going to play through it on your own anyway, like it gets pretty tough to play through it just for review.
Like
time is super limited at this point.
Yeah, I put like 90 hours into Stardew Valley before I reviewed it, and that's because I played it all on my own time. And then it's like, well, I actually just really want to say some things about this.
I mean, years and years ago, like when we were back at GameSpot doing reviews there, like we kind of had I wouldn't call it a mandate, but like the general expectation is that we were going to review just about everything that came along. And we had the staff size and the budget to do that at the time. But even GameSpot doesn't do that anymore. It's a lot of stuff has changed around that stuff. So
also, there were a lot fewer games coming out back then.
Yeah, totally. So, I totally understand why someone in his position would make that judgment call. Just be like, we're not going to waste our time with this Mario and Sonic game because no one really needs a review of that. On account of a lot of those games have been bad, or you even removed from that, like having the traffic back of like, hey, no one reads our coverage of this game, so we're not going to waste our time producing it.
Right.
It's unfortunate in some way. It would be nice to still live in that world where there's someone out there reviewing everything and kind of like establishing that baseline, but that's a very expensive baseline to establish, and it's just
not necessarily a business case for it at this point.
Yeah.
And you can discover weird stuff when you are kind of reviewing everything, like just weird stuff to talk about or showcase or make content about. Like I remember we reviewed pretty much everything at Game Informer when I was there. I'm not sure what their mandate is now, but like Ride to Hell. Ride to Hell I thought was fucking hilarious, and I probably would have never played that game outside of if I wasn't assigned it to review. And we wound up doing like a whole live stream of the entire game and everything. Like you can find hidden gems, maybe not good. But it can get harder when you don't have like a huge staff and, when numbers say that it doesn't make sense to do that.
Yeah.
There's a really good letter from the editor of, I think, Touch Arcade, where he lays it out very succinctly and says basically like there are so many mobile games coming out that like we have to do at least some filtering process before we review. We can't review every single mobile game.
Yeah, like we can't do quick looks of every single game. And that's a far less of a time investment than even reviews. But we have to make judgment calls based around. Well, and we're lucky to be in a position, thanks to our premium subscribers, where we get to make a lot of those calls based around kind of personal interest and what we think would be like good for them and that sort of stuff, what we think might be good content.
Not necessarily a good game, but good content or informative in some way or...
Like there are definitely
like,
games where like we've, hey, let's look at this for a quick look and then like look at it and go like, man, this is shit. But we should still do a quick look of this because people need to know. And... so those sorts of videos happen as well.
With reviews in particular, sometimes it leads to this weird self-selecting trend in scoring, though, where like if you're only reviewing games that you're already super interested in, like, I've given 5 stars to 3 games this year, barely halfway through, but they're all games that I was super looking forward to, and like that right now I would put up as like 3 of the best of the entire generation, so like it's a weird thing where you're like your scores are kind of biased to be higher than average.
It happens,
because you're leaning toward reviewing stuff.
We give reviews on a 5-star scale, and if we're out there kind of picking things that like, oh man, I definitely want to play this based on having played a little bit of it before, like that you're gonna choose games that probably end up being good or really bad. In big franchises or something like that. It's like that's just how it works out. I don't know. Like I review Call of Duty every year because I'm still like. really interested in seeing how those games evolve from year to year. Like my personal interest in the franchise has certainly gone down. But they have their good years and their bad years.
I mean,
but,
it's also it's hard to shake that old GameSpot responsibility to weigh in on stuff that matters. Or it's just stuff that's big.
Oh, sure,
it's like, okay, like nobody is super stoked about this game, but it should have a review.
But also, I think like that's what matters. I think is a very different thing for us than maybe it was then too. Because I would argue that maybe like Call of Duty doesn't matter in the to our audience the way that it might matter to a more mainstream site.
Yeah. Or
think about if you think about reviews as like trying to actually provide a service for people. You don't need to review Call of Duty because the people who are going to buy Call of Duty are going to buy Call of Duty.
It's the same as the Mario and Sonic thing.
Yeah. And I think
audiences are exactly the same.
Well, but but yeah, it's definitely the same concept. I think so much has changed around how much information about a game is available right around launch with the way there are multiple live streams running, and now more and more developers are running their own live streams and that sort of stuff. Like the place of reviews in kind of modern times, I think is never been shakier.
Yeah.
And I think that it becomes that case of like, the traditional product review, I think, has lost a lot of meaning. And at some point reviews need to evolve to be something more entertaining or not entertaining, more interesting than just like frame rate's rough, 3 out of 5, right. That's not actually valuable to anyone other than people who want like their opinions validated because they pre-ordered a game
or just want to get angry about something.
Yeah. So like, not to say that there's zero business value in that, but at the same time, like that's not something worth chasing. So I don't know. I think that when it comes to written reviews and stuff like that, like they need to evolve to be more like film criticism, which I think we were against for a very long time early on because it's like you could kind of look at it and go like, well, games are $60, like people need to know, but people are finding out that information in different ways, more dynamic ways than a written review. So I question if that's like the best way for any of these larger sites to be proceeding these days. But at the same time, like they attract such a weird like search, like surface level audience of like people that are coming in from some side door on search because they Googled a game name. Like those people would probably benefit from the traditional written review.
Here's a number, get it or don't
here's
get
a number
it.
because you're trying to buy a game for your kid.
Yeah.
And you're just Googling names and you don't know anything about any of this stuff. So here, that's got value. They're not going to go watch a live stream and go like, I don't know, the reload animation looks, but that's not our audience. So we don't have to cater to that sort of thing, thankfully.